Well, thank you for joining us tonight for this special Zoom virtual meeting. Looks like we have about 85 people already signed up and looks like it's growing. I see a lot of neighborhood watch captains on. Glad you joined us tonight. As Mayor of Belle Meade, myself and others are excited to introduce Belle Meade Together, our city's long-range master plan. Our beautiful meadow, known as Belle Meade, is a small but vibrant community with a little more than 3,000 residents residing in approximately 1,230 homes. Let's begin tonight with a question that you should see on your screen. How long have you lived in Belle Meade? Click on the one that applies to you. We'll have some results here shortly. All right. Looks like we have 65% people have lived in Belle Meade more than 15 years, and we have 10% that have been here under 5 years. So it's good. It's a good break of people. It appears that we have answered that question readily. So I'm happy to know that everybody can participate in this polling. In the past several years, we have tackled some major challenges that were answered by a video surveillance system, an updated neighborhood watch, and more recently, a tree ordinance, a conservation overlay, and a historic zoning commission. All these recent additions have and will result in continued high quality of new homes that maintain the beauty and diversity of our existing architecture. In this presentation, you will see and hear that Belle Meade Together will take on new challenges for the next decade. I really hope you will join us in making the plan a success. There'll be plenty of opportunity for you to participate. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a tab marked Q&A. We encourage you at any time during this presentation to submit questions using this Q&A tab. Your questions will be submitted and answered at the end of the presentation. Remember also that this presentation can be viewed later through the city's YouTube channel. Let me now introduce Louise Bryan, Vice Mayor, who will be spearheading Belle Meade Together. Louise?
Thank you, Jim. As many of you know, in June of 2019, the Belle Meade Board of Commissioners conducted a survey to measure resident satisfaction and prioritize issues in order to guide commissioners in their day-to-day work. The survey results delivered a clear directive from citizens to local leaders that the city of Belle Meade needed a long-term approach to address the issues of walkability, beautification, traffic calming, and stormwater management. The slide shows the summary results from the survey, in which over half the respondents reported they felt it very important for the city to establish a long-term plan to address these issues, which are very connected. As Jim mentioned, legislation has already concluded that creates a 5-member historic zoning commission, adopts a neighborhood conservation overlay, and implements a tree ordinance. Each initiative was conducted with local direction and intended to preserve the architectural character of Belle Meade. Moving forward, Belle Meade Together is a plan to protect and preserve what draws people to Belle Meade, while at the same time preparing the city to enhance and improve upon these positive aspects. Next, our city manager, Beth Reardon, will take us through what we can expect with the major objectives of Belle Meade Together.
Thank you, Louise, and good evening to all of our participants. I see we're above 100, that's great. The Belle Meade Together plan has several different objectives, all based on resident comments over the last several years, and as Louise said, the results of the 2019 survey. Residents overwhelmingly indicated they desire streets that are safe for walking and cycling, allowing them to safely reach destination points such as the Belle Meade Club or Palmer Park, or just to visit friends and neighbors. Directly connected to safe pedestrian use of the streets is the idea of incorporating traffic calming strategies to slow down vehicles as they pass through Belle Meade. Many neighborhood streets have become popular for cut-through traffic that often travels faster than the posted speed limits. More than 3/4 of the 2019 survey respondents stated that beautification and branding was also very important to them. When people enter our city limits, they should immediately be aware that they are in a different, distinct, and beautiful place. This can be accomplished by incorporating consistent signage and landscaping elements throughout the city, especially at some main gateway entrances to Belle Meade. The plan will also address stormwater issues in the city and, when possible, include the drainage solution within a newly landscaped area. The Belle Meade Together plan is a long-term capital plan that will define the future of our city. It will take many years to fully implement. Most importantly, this plan is also a resident-driven plan, and we need citizen input in order for it to be successful. And in just a moment, we'll have another polling question that everybody can answer. And you can select your top 3 issues that you think are most important. Great, great. I'm not too surprised by the top 3. Those pretty much follow the 2019 survey results. So very good. Thank you very much for doing that. I just also want to remind you that, as Jim and Louise did, that you can click on the Q&A at the bottom of your screen and enter questions at any time. And we'll be sure and take those up at the end of the session. Thanks. And I will now hand this over to the consulting firm of Kimley Horn, specifically Kevin Tilbury, who is a certified urban planner and the team leader for this project. We'll speak about how you can get involved with us in the development of the Belle Meade Together plan, which is a plan to protect, preserve, prepare, and enhance this beautiful city. Kevin?
Thanks, Beth. And I'd like to echo Beth and Louise and Jim in thanking you for attending and welcoming you to the project. I have to say, I'm looking at the number of participants and we're at well over 100. I'm overwhelmed by the interest and response. That's excellent. I have been running public meetings, community meetings for well over 20 years, and I could probably say more than 100 meetings. And in terms of a percent of the community involvement, this is probably the most turnout I've ever had at a meeting. So you all are to be committed for that. Really, really encouraged by that. So hopefully you get a sense of what we're trying to accomplish with Belle Meade Together through the words of the mayor, the vice mayor, and the city manager. And I think the one point that we'd like to drive home is that this is a citizen-driven plan. We really want Belle Meade Together to reflect the wants and desires of the community. So in order to do that, we need to provide multiple opportunities for the community to get involved. So tonight's town hall is certainly a great first step, and we've also assembled some other opportunities for you to get involved. So let me run through a few of those just briefly. So I think a number of you have probably already started to explore our website. This is a great opportunity to get involved in the project at your convenience on your own terms. So for those of you who haven't, let me give you a brief tour in terms of how to get there. So if you go to the, let me see if I can find, there we are. So if you go to the city's website, citybelmeade.org, you'll see an icon right here at the front of the page, Belle Meade Together. If you click on that, it will bring up the project website. So this is a site that is dedicated to Belle Meade Together. throughout the duration of the plan. So you can check back here at any time to get information of the plan. So it will give you an overview. There's a nice welcome video with the mayor and vice mayor. And then there's information here on upcoming events. We'll talk more about those in just a minute. You can also learn more about the project. We have some frequently asked questions. You can learn more about who all is involved in the project through the steering committee, the project timeline. And if you want to stay involved, we have an opportunity for you to put in your email address and you'll get on our mailing list so you can stay involved. One feature that I'd like to point out in particular is our online mapper. So you can either get to it by clicking here, or there's also a hyperlink at the top of the page. And if you click on it, it's going to bring up a map of Belle Meade. And what's great is that the different elements that Beth talked about, walking and cycling, traffic calming, beautification and branding, public spaces, stormwater, all those issues and opportunities, you have an opportunity to provide feedback on specific locations in Belle Meade. And you can see a number of your neighbors have already done so. So all you do to get involved is you simply drag one of these icons down to a specific location on the map and then leave a comment. And you can see a number of comments have already been made. For example, if we click here, it's, this is Jackson Boulevard, and I think everyone generally acknowledges that there's an issue here with speeding and with cut through traffic. And so people have left comments to that effect. Linwood, we've heard a lot of interest about walking and biking on Linwood, but the fact that there are high-speed vehicles that sort of use this road to cut through, that's an issue and that's a conflict. So those are the things that we're starting to learn about Belle Meade through this map. So we strongly encourage you to go and learn more and to provide your input there. Now, some people appreciate face-to-face interaction. There really is no substitute for personal interaction, and we understand that that's a challenge in our current situation with COVID, which is exactly why we're having a virtual town hall. But that said, we did want to create a handful of safe, socially distanced opportunities for you to provide face-to-face feedback. So the first one is coming up on Sunday. We're calling it the Meet the Team Day. It will be this Sunday, November 1st, from 2 to 4 p.m. at St. George's Episcopal Church, right there near City Hall under the big tent. Now, we know that the Titans are playing on Sunday, but it's the Bengals. So the game will probably be over by halftime, and you can still come out and meet the team. We'd love to meet you there. Another opportunity is the following Tuesday on November 3rd. That's Election Day. So a number of you will be coming out to Belle Meade to vote. We're going to have a table set up outside of City Hall. So come by, vote, and then see us there. And we'll provide some opportunities for face-to-face interaction there as well. So we'd love to see you at those locations. Now, as the project moves forward, there will be future opportunities to get involved, additional town halls, some more face-to-face interaction, and those types of things. So while we're on the topic, let's talk briefly about our project timeline. So right now, we're at the very beginning of the process. We're calling this our kickoff phase, and that's going to last throughout the duration of the fall and into the winter. And this is really our listening phase. So we're not making recommendations or presenting strategies. We're sitting back and we're having a conversation with you, the residents, on what you think the issues are that we need to address, what you love about the city that we need to be able to preserve and protect, all those types of things. And so that's what we're going to spend the majority of the fall, is listening and synthesizing that information. And then once we get into the winter, we're going to shift gears and we're going to take what we've heard and what we've learned and work with our experts to put together a plan in combination with you all for the city. And right when it starts to get warm outside in the early spring, we'll probably come back out to you in a format such as this to present a draft plan. And that will be your opportunity to provide feedback on some of the recommendations that are in direct response to what you told us in the fall. And then once we start to get to the summer and we've gotten feedback from you, we'll finalize it, we'll head to adoption, and then we can shift gears and start implementing, start getting some of these great projects done. So that's sort of in a nutshell the timeline. And so now I think what we have planned is, this is an overview of Belle Meade Together. Like we said, we're at the beginning. We want to, I think, hit pause at this point and provide you all an opportunity to provide questions, and we'll answer. And so again, use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen if you haven't already, and put in a question. And I'm going to invite some of my colleagues from the Kimley-Horn team to join me. Alicia Ellie, who is a registered landscape architect, and Terrence Hill, who is a professional engineer, are going to join me along with Jim, Beth, and Louise to take your questions. So I'll stop at this point and turn it over to our moderator to see what kind of questions we have.
Thank you. My name is Debbie, and I'll be sharing the questions that you all share. So I'm going to give a second for all of our panelists to turn their videos on. And okay, I think we're ready. All right, our first question is, for traffic calming, would Belle Meade consider more electric signs that post drivers' speeds as they drive on our streets?
I'll start this.
Sure.
At this time, the electric signs are more for collecting data to see exactly where the speed limits are on those streets. And then those signs take that data and are used by traffic engineers like Terrence and others to determine what the best approach may be. I'm not quite sure those type of signs are something we want to have permanently on our streets. But Terrence, maybe you can talk a little bit about what those are used for and what the options are after the data is collected.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of times they are used for studies to kind of see what the traffic is actually doing. A lot of times when we do traffic studies, we try to see what the prevailing speed limit is. A lot of places, the prevailing speed, or the 85th percentile speed, basically what 85% of the vehicles are going or slower, is the speed limit is usually what it's set at. I think in these instances, studies have shown that these haptic speed limit signs, they give you the feedback. They tend to slow people down right at the sign, but once they get past it, they will speed right back up. So they aren't necessarily the device I would use for traffic calming necessarily.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to our next question. We actually had several questions about safety. So given the recent developments in the rise in crime, shouldn't we have safety and security as an option for the priorities list?
Sure. In fact, beauty, safety, and high quality of life represent the core approach to this whole master plan. And it's actually the first sentence on the website. One of the things that we're trying to do with this plan is to address the issue of connectivity in the neighborhood. That's better walkability, that creates more eyes on the street, that creates more safe foot traffic, bicycle traffic. All this greater activity improves communication among residents. Right now, our police department is known across the state and other areas to be very significant in enforcing speed limits, as well as maintaining an active patrol. But some motorists don't know when they enter the city of Belle Meade. The other issue that we'd like to address is information and branding, so that motorists who come to Belle Meade know that they're entering the city of Belle Meade, because it has such a strong reputation and a strong police department. Do you want to add anything to that, Jim?
Yeah, let me add to that and say that safety kind of means two things to me. I think of pedestrian safety, and then I think of home safety. I'd like to talk about each of those for a moment. Safety before crime, I think Belle Meade, the video surveillance system provides a deterrent. I think that we did our survey, and maybe 98% of the people living in Belle Meade have their home security system. We have police that are actually patrolling the streets, and a lot of the crime that we see getting ready to happen, we nip it before it does happen. after a crime, we've got a detective, and people that have used the detective think he's a crackerjack. I know he's a crackerjack because I've used him before to solve some crimes. He's very good, but he loves that video surveillance system, and he can track things down that video surveillance system that we never thought we could use that system to do. Safety as a pedestrian, I think Louise touched on that. And speeding in vehicles, that's going to be one of our primary concerns. Maybe it was interpreted not as a direct safety issue, but it certainly is, and should have been maybe a little more clear as that was. But it certainly is a top priority. So I think that we certainly look at safety being is really the number one thing. We want to make sure the citizens feel comfortable in their security and living in Belle Meade. Beth, you want to add anything to that?
I'll just say that in my mind, there's two kinds of safety: the safety from crime, which we've pretty much tackled with our surveillance system, and that we'll be adding to as budget years go on. But in this plan, we're really looking at pedestrian and safety. We want people to be able to walk on their streets and visit their neighbors without being afraid that they're going to be hit by a car that's speeding by and not paying attention. And this plan definitely is going to address that issue on all of our neighborhood streets.
Let me add one other thing is that somebody had commented about the recent crimes close to Belle Meade. We found out about that before they found out in Green Hills they were having a problem. We actually identified people in Belle Meade with the video surveillance system. Those people quickly found out that we can identify those people, and we will take action against them. The detective he'll spend years trying to track somebody down, as Beth and I can attribute that to Tom Sexton's sleuthness. Anyway, so the video surveillance has been great as a deterrent, and I think Beth and Louise both have covered the safety of pedestrians too.
All right, so pedestrian safety was actually our next question, which Beth, I think you actually answered it pretty well. And I will just add that the person asking this question about residents being able to safely walk wanted to make sure that it includes elderly adults, children, and the handicapped, so that everyone would be considered. But I think I'll move on. Do you guys feel that you have answered that enough?
I think so.
Okay, so our next question. With Belle Meade historic property known as the Plantation with 30 acres, which is an absolute jewel to the foundation of all that is Belle Meade, could you come up with a priority to create walking, cycling plan to bring the residents and visitors to the property as a destination, treated like a public park, as a place to gather and enjoy that is well located?
That sounds like a question from John Rochford. John, great question. I'm going to let Louise tackle that one first because of connectivity of sidewalks. You want to talk about that, Louise?
Okay, great. Yes. Bravo. The Belle Meade Historic Site is really a jewel in Belle Meade. And of course, it's a destination. Right now, the street actually has a sidewalk, except for about the last 50 feet, which would let the pedestrian reach Belle Meade Historic Site safely. And there's several areas in Belle Meade where the sidewalks just end. That's because the sidewalks were not constructed with a master plan or a larger plan in mind. And one of the first things we want to do is see what the easy connections may be. I think the Belle Meade Historic Site is probably one of the top 1 or 2 destinations we want to be sure that people in Belle Meade can reach safely. So bravo, I hope you've made that comment on the interactive map. That would be very helpful. But it's as a destination and as an integral part of Belle Meade, it's absolutely a place that pedestrians should be able to reach safely and securely.
Thank you, Louise. That's great. Great answer. Next question.
Our next question is from someone who lives in Belle Meade Links on Westover Drive. Thanks for including us in the Zoom. What role will Belle Meade Links play in all of this?
Well, Belle Meade Links is our closest neighbor. We'd love to hear some of your suggestions for how we can be a good neighbor. Again, connectivity is one of the most, is the foundation of this plan. I'd love to know if there's some specific areas that person is interested in or specific issues. Again, the interactive map is the place where we're getting the information right now. But again, we're available on the morning of the election on Tuesday, as well as at St. George's Church under the tent on Sunday afternoon.
I like to comment about the links because I live right across the street from the links. There are actually only 3 entrances to the links. 2 of them are on Westover, which really borders Belle Meade on all sides. So the other is down by Harding Academy. So I think we really do need to look at the links as more of a neighbor that we end up protecting. I think I had to say that I think the links received some services passively from the city of Belle Meade, because I see the police driving down Westover. I see them occasionally will go into the links. So we encourage that from our police force. So we maybe a suggestion how we could do maybe a better job. We would be open to that suggestion. Thank you for that question.
All right. Our next question, have you decided on specific entry points for Belle Meade where signage will be?
We have not yet decided on anything because we have not completed all the resident feedback. So it's important for you to tell us where you think the entrances are. If you look on a map, there are some obvious entrances that we see very clearly. And there are some existing small signs which say you're entering the city of Belle Meade. You could think of Linwood and Harding, but
Don't forget Chickering.
Chickering, right. I don't have that map in front of me, but please, I encourage you to go on the map and tell us what you think would be the gateway entrances to Belle Meade. But we have not made any decisions yet. No, we're still in an information gathering phase.
That's going to be a big decision for us because it gives us a chance for beautification, for traffic calming, all things together. We can for safety, beautification, and traffic control. So it will be very important.
All right. Our next question is, can the firm provide some details regarding engagements they have completed that have characteristics similar to Belle Meade?
Kevin, I'll let you take this one.
Well, the first thing I'll say is I don't think I've ever worked in a place that's exactly like Belle Meade, so I can't point it. Belle Meade is a unique community, both in terms of where it's located, the nature of the community being almost entirely residential and the pastoral, the fact that it has a very pastoral setting, but it's right adjacent to the heart of Metro Nashville makes it sort of unique in that respect. So I've never worked in a place that's exactly like Belle Meade, but some of the places that I've worked similarly most likely would be in places like Florida, in some of the communities along the coast that are similarly situated, sort of enclaves where they get a lot of pass-through traffic. I'm thinking specifically in Pinellas County in the St. Petersburg area down in Florida, where you have these enclave communities that are well cultivated, but that are adjacent to many other communities that get a lot of cut-through traffic. And so I would point to that as probably being the most comparable example. And so in those situations, we've identified design enhancements similar to what we're seeking to do for this project that would establish those communities as being very unique, so that very definitively when you pass through that town that this is a neighborhood and not just a thoroughfare. And so it's the key is creating design elements that let people know that. So that's one example. And then the other would probably be even further down Florida in the Miami area, where there are similarly enclave communities that are located in, as part of the larger metro area. I'll stop and let Terrence and Alicia maybe provide some examples for them as well.
Thanks, Kevin. I'd say, again, to reiterate, there's no place like Belle Meade. But on a lot of our plans, we see a lot of similar concerns. And so I think that's what the similarities are, where there's traffic concerns, safety concerns, beautification, branding opportunities. And so there are very, very similarities there that we're seeing in other communities that we've worked in.
And I would kind of echo the same thing. We've worked in communities all around Belle Meade, whether it's Oak Hill or Berry Hill or with Metro. So again, your problems, your neighborhood is definitely unique, but your problems are shared throughout many communities around the country.
All right, thank you. Our next several questions deal with traffic issues. So have you discussed an overall Belle Meade speed limit of 25 miles per hour?
Well, an overall speed limit of 25 miles per hour has been discussed in previous Board of Commissioners meetings. I think we were waiting to see what Metro did. We certainly don't want to have I personally think we don't want to have a speed limit that's higher than the neighboring streets. But absolutely, there are different types of streets in Belle Meade: residential streets, collector streets, and they each need to be evaluated. Terrence, this is your department. I'd ask for your advice on that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. You typically don't want to set a speed limit for the entire community unless you've gone through and basically see all the various roadways kind of have the same characteristics. If they don't, then that probably isn't the best idea. Going through and on particular roadways, maybe doing some speed studies is definitely something that we can do to kind of get an idea again of what people are traveling. If you just had arbitrary speed limits, people typically won't just go that speed limit just because the feel of the road doesn't make them feel like they should go that speed limit. If you have wide shoulders, straight road, people typically want to go faster. If it's kind of curvy, more neighborhood driven, they'll probably go slower if they're, and so I think it's kind of a one of those things of maybe neighborhood streets can all be 25 miles an hour, but potentially other roadways that may carry more traffic that may link to certain other neighborhoods or other streets may need to be looked at more closely.
Well, I would say that our most heavily traveled street is Harding Place, and we went to 25 miles per hour there because we felt like we have to. I think the speed limit on Harding Place changes from 35 to 30, and then when you get to Belle Meade, it's 25. It's a great place for the police to write citations, but it really has slowed the traffic down. The sidewalks there have helped too on Harding Place. We need to use Harding Place as a great example of what can be done in terms of traffic calming. It really has done that, and the sidewalks obviously have been great for the neighbors to use those sidewalks.
And I'd just like to jump in and echo what Terrence said about what actually determines how fast cars go. I mean, signing a road is certainly one way to do it, but really it's the design of the road is what's going to dictate how fast cars go. And there are subtle, the mayor mentioned sidewalks. That's certainly one way to subtly calm traffic. We've got a number of different tools in the toolkit that are appropriate for Belle Meade that we can use that can both be nice looking, can be attractive. They can also make it easier to walk and bike and facilitate drainage. So there are a number of different approaches that we can take, but it's really how we design the roads is what's going to control that speed.
I think we would personally support 25 miles per hour in Belle Meade, maybe except for Belle Meade Boulevard, because it's a straightway and it's hard to control the speed there. It's easy to patrol it, so we can control by patrolling. So I would feel pretty good about that.
All right, moving on. Another question about traffic. How can we prevent people from driving in the left lane along Belle Meade Boulevard?
There are a lot of ways to do that. The best way to prevent people from driving in the left lane is to communicate to motorists they should not be driving in the left lane. Right now, there's nothing in the street or the lanes which tell the motorist it's not just a regular 2-lane street. There are signs on the median which say left lane for passing and turning only. However, there's not a strong enough communication so that people who are not from Belle Meade or didn't grow up here, or an Uber driver or a new driver or someone cutting through Belle Meade doesn't understand the tradition of that left-hand lane. So again, Alicia and Terrence, this is a great example of how interconnected these issues are. But we're looking, to evaluate some aesthetics which tell the driver that that lane is for passing and turning.
We also, for a short period of time, had signs out. They were temporary signs that did mention that that left lane was for passing and for turning. It's too bad our fellow commissioner Rusty Moore is not. I think he's on this call, but I think he's kind of taken this as something he really wants to pursue. But we do find that it's abused by cars being in the left lane. But we have so many. I guess we'd call them the people landscaping people that come through Belle Meade with their trailers, and that does create a problem when they get in the left lane. But I think that they're learning to be in the right lane and not get in the left lane unless they're turning. So I think and the police are writing citations for that too. So.
Okay. This is kind of a two-part question, but I think it goes along. Will Belle Meade consider restricting large construction vehicles like dump trucks and semi-trucks on Belle Meade Boulevard between certain hours of the day, for example, from 5 p.m. till 8 a.m.?
I think it's something that could be considered for sure. I think Belle Meade Boulevard is a larger street. The larger vehicles would be welcome there as opposed to the more delicate residential streets as far as cutting through or getting to Harding. But yes, all those would be considered.
All right. And the first part actually of that question was much more general, and I think it is an important one. What is the primary means to provide input to the team?
There are many ways to provide input for the team. This town hall going on right now. Sunday at St. George's under the tent, we will have in person with Kimberly Horn and members of staff and commissioners. The morning of the election at Belle Meade City Hall, we will have a table put up from 8 to 10 a.m. You can always email Jim or myself or any other commissioner with any information, concerns you have. Our emails are on the website. Kevin, how long is the interactive map going to be up and running exactly?
We will leave the interactive map up. We haven't decided on a specific end date, but it will at least be the bulk of November.
Okay.
We're continuing to get strong traffic, and I imagine we'll get even more traffic after this meeting. And so as long as we continue to get a strong response, we'll leave the map up, and we'll give people in advance notice when we take it down, but we'll at least keep it up through the first half of November. And I would echo your sentiment. That's probably the best way to provide, the most direct way to provide feedback, for sure.
We also will be having 2 separate meetings at Belle Meade Plantation. That'll be an RSVP limited number of participants, but that will be, we've got the dates. We'll be communicating those dates, but that'll be another chance to use our in-person, using all the protocols of COVID. But those, Beth, do you have those dates handy, or Louise, do you have them handy? The 2 dates at the plantation?
They're both in November.
Yeah.
I can get those for you before the meeting ends.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have.
Those will be good opportunities to also to bring your questions there.
All right. This next question is about bike paths. And so they note that there are lots of people that ride their bikes to the park. They also comment on electric bikes and electric assist motors, and they would like to know what are the plans for bike paths in the future, if any?
safe biking is a big part of what we're trying to do. It's all part of the connectivity and the safe transportation. I don't think that we are trying to invite large groups of bikers. We're not trying to encourage them to use Belle Meade Boulevard to access the park. There are other ways to enter the park with large groups, large pelotons, but we are trying to make sure that the parent with their child riding to the park, whether that be Palmer Park or Percy Warner Park, has a safe way to get there if they choose to be on their bikes. Again, no decisions have been made. So if you have a suggestion or an idea, I encourage you to put it on the map. Biking and walkability are its own topic on the map. So we encourage your suggestions there.
All righty. How do right-of-ways work in Belle Meade? Oftentimes in Metro, a development project spurs right-of-way whereby roads or sidewalks must be widened. Does Belle Meade control or have right-of-ways in place?
I'll let Beth handle that question.
Lyle can
Right.
also address it if he would unmute. Beth, go ahead. Sir.
Okay, there's a right of way on every street in the city. Usually most streets are 25 feet from the center lane and go out. So if you measure 25 feet, whatever is not paved or and beyond that point is the city right of way. And our policy is like most cities, we place sidewalks in the right of way, and only under very rare circumstances would we ever require an easement to put a sidewalk on private property. And that would be just if there was something in the way of the path of the sidewalk that couldn't be removed or modified. But the city right of way does belong to the city, and that's what would be used to facilitate a sidewalk on a street.
And I'll just add, we have information on where the city right of way is located, and so we understand, what the parameters are, and we'll include that in the planning process.
All right, and this question is, I think, can you talk about the prospect of sidewalks on busy streets like Linwood?
Yes, I think that Linwood has a lot of challenges. Linwood is a long, straight street, and people like to, speed down that street. I can't tell you how many times I've had an Uber driver, I've had to say, the speed limit on this street is 30. And they'll say, are you sure? And I'll say, yes, I'm positive. Sidewalks will be considered as part of a greater plan for connecting to destinations, as well as for cost concerns about how expensive it may be, as well as for drainage. But it'll be considered in a larger, broader term of how it contributes to the connectivity and the safety of the street for walking as well as for driving. Terrence earlier, and Kevin's touched on this, the design of the street can greatly impact how fast motorists travel on that street. It's not necessarily the presence of sidewalks that would reduce speed on a street. It can be a contributing factor. So, but to answer your question, yes, sidewalks would be considered on Linwood.
Let's move to this other question about sidewalks, actually. Sidewalks seem to be the default solution to improving walkability, and the one that the questioner is most in favor of where needed. With that said, what solutions other than sidewalks are known to improve walkability?
I think Terrence ought to see if he can help us with that one.
Hey, no problem. I guess there's a few different things that can be done. I mean, I think specifically looking at Belle Meade Boulevard, you may or may not want to put sidewalks down there. You kind of already have a lane that you designated, or the community has designated, as kind of a walking lane for the most part. There can be small barriers that can be constructed, whether they're small medians or what we call delineator posts that kind of the reflectors that kind of stick up, in the pavement to mark where the edge of the pavement is. More striping, more signage. There's a multitude of things to look at, and again, it kind of depends on the characteristics of each individual roadway, honestly.
Those people along Linwood are familiar with delineators, and they're not too happy about them.
Gotcha.
Because we do channel them down through, and it does become an obstacle actually. But Linwood obviously is going to be a huge challenge for us in the speeding element, because it is a freeway down there. So.
And to that point, Mayor, I'll add that I think speed is also a major determinant in terms of walkability. Is in very low speed, low volume streets, people may feel comfortable walking in the street, but in other cases, sidewalks is obviously a good solution. In some cases where we have the right of way and it's warranted, we could look at off-road trails as well. So there are several different, I think, tools at our disposal to be able to do that. But sidewalks is obviously a very important part of that.
Let's take a question about crime. Does the city track crime statistics, and is this information shared with the residents?
I can
Non-traffic.
I can address that once every 2 weeks that we get a crime report from the chief of police. I send that to the neighborhood watch people. Some of those people have chosen not to send those out to the residents because residents didn't want them. But there is a website link on the website that they can go to. But we would prefer to do it through Neighborhood Watch, and I'm hoping that those Neighborhood Watch captains will start forwarding those to the residents, and then till they told I don't want those things. But anyway, they've gotten better because they're more descriptive now.
All right. Let's take a landscape question. Will our landscape plants specifically provide support for bees and some butterfly species, which are shrinking in numbers?
Yes, we need to take care of pollinators. We need to attract pollinators at all costs. The Ceres Society at Belle Meade is one of the most active and engaged organizations in our community. If you don't know about Ceres, our beautification society, I encourage you to learn more about it through Laura Catherine Wood, who's president of that society right now. They have been working for years to keep Belle Meade and maintain Belle Meade as a beautiful place. They take care of this. They recommend the seasonal plantings along the traffic islands right now. And Ceres will be the most impactful stakeholder in any landscape design plan we have as part of this plan. So yes, we will be sure to attract pollinators, but I'll let Alicia, as a landscape design architect, talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, Luis, you definitely hit the nail on the head. Again, we're just listening right now. Haven't made any suggestions specifically regarding plantings, design, or selection, but we'll definitely have already started working with Ceres and definitely will be throughout this process. Pollinators are very important. We also know that lower maintenance plants are going to be important. Again, we want to implement those to keep those beautiful throughout the city. So we'll look at a lot of our plant options. Every day it seems like there's new plants coming out, and so we've got a lot of great partners we work with that evaluate those and share with us what works and what doesn't work, and will definitely fit the right environment and the right plant for this situation.
Great. A new topic here. Has burying the utility lines on Belle Meade Boulevard been considered or evaluated?
It's been evaluated. I think Beth can tell us when, but I think the first time maybe was 20 years ago, and it was the estimate to bury the line was right at $20-something million. And I think that we now would think it would be more in the neighborhood of $50 million. NES does not want to do that. It would, so I think it's become a cost element. We really just can't consider that. It would be beautiful, but we just can't consider it. Beth, did you want to add on what I've said?
I just know in the past that NES was not in favor of that. These are high voltage lines, and they feel it would actually be harder for them to maintain below underground than they are above ground. So they never were in favor of burying those lines. So I think we're stuck with them above ground at this point.
All right. This question asks, what interaction will there be with Metro, for instance, with Metro Parks?
We've already talked a little bit with Metro, and Belle Meade right now has a very good relationship with Metro Parks, with Percy Warner Park. We've done a lot with the parking lot right there to allow the Percy Warner Park to increase their parking. And I know Jim has been in touch with the park regarding Palmer Park and some options there as well. Jim, why don't you kind of discuss what some options may be for that?
Well, it may be a little early to talk about Palmer Park, but Belle Meade, it is located obviously within Belle Meade. So we now have an MOU with Metro and Park Police to patrol and police that park. But we would like to take a greater role in Palmer Park, being that we could actually add beautification to that park. There's several things we could do. We discussed with the mayor of Nashville. So Rusty Moore and I will be meeting with the mayor to get that down to some fine details. But we do want to include Palmer Park in our research and what we plan on doing in the future.
All right. This is another question that builds a little bit on the idea of traffic calming. So it says traffic calming is fine where needed, but what we've done to date does not do anything to beautify our city. Will future efforts make this more of a priority?
Absolutely. The reason that we can look at these issues together is because Kimley Horn as a firm is providing us with expertise in different areas in order to solve these problems and look at our solutions. Speed bumps are not pretty. Delineators are not pretty. They can be short-term effective solutions, but we are looking at the more design elements in the streets in order to really impact traffic speed.
All right. So here's an important question. And the person asking thanks you all for doing this, and they are very excited about it. They would like to know, how will these suggestions from residents be prioritized, planned, paid for, and constructed?
Louise, you want to take how they will be prioritized?
Okay, prioritized. First, we will continue to gather information over the next month, as Kevin said. And then we will look to see what the residents have told us. The priority is the residents' priority. This is resident driven. So if we have the majority of residents having issues in two or three concerns, that's what we'll focus on. But again, the master plan is designed to address many issues which are interrelated, that's how we will look at them.
I think the finances will come the same way. We have a reserve account. Obviously, we've got a budget every year that we do balance every year, and so it's important that we look at the long range cost of what we're talking about too. So some things will be driven by cost in addition to priorities. So I think it's going to be real hard to say how that's going to happen right now. We do know sidewalks. We know what sidewalks cost generally, but at the same time, the length of the sidewalk, the connectivity of the sidewalk are going to be what makes it a priority sidewalk or not.
And Mayor, if I could just jump in and add, if we could just snap our fingers and have all these improvements happen simultaneously, we could, we would, but obviously we can't do that. And because of things like financial resources, logistics, a number of factors, we'll have to, prioritize and phase improvements. So included in the master planning process when we're done would be a set of phasing. So projects that we're going to pursue first with available resources, and then things that may happen later on, and things that may happen even further later on down the road. And so we're certainly getting feedback now, and that's going to help us identify strategies and projects and priorities. But then later, once the plan starts to come together, the residents will get another opportunity to review and weigh in, and that will also help us prioritize and set phasing plans for projects as well.
All right. Does the scope of the plan include architectural restrictions on homes built in Belle Meade?
The scope,
Let's see if we can get Lyle to unmute since he is our codes director. There he goes. Lyle, you want to address that one?
Sure. Well, we've already got.
I know you love that question. So.
Yeah, I was waiting for something from you.
That's a softball for him. Okay.
Yeah, we've actually got a zoning code in place now that regulates homes as far as size and bulk. We've got something called FAR, which is a floor area ratio. It regulates the building envelope where you can build inside the envelope. It's 12% the size of the lot, unless you have a larger estate lot out on Chickering where it's 8%. And within the last year, we've implemented the Historic Zoning Committee, which has done a really fabulous job of addressing homes that are being built or large additions to be added on. They mostly look at identifying a certain style. They look at the scale and ratio of houses. So, and all homes are welcome. They just want to protect what's here. It could be a property of significance or a property of conservation. And that determines, that's determined by the age of the property or significance, maybe by a famous architect or maybe someone famous that lived in the home. But the commission is doing a really great job of keeping the integrity and harmony in Belle Meade alive.
All right. We've got a lot of questions still. We have a lot of questions still open, so I'm trying to get
Maybe
to
let me interrupt and say that any of these questions that go unanswered tonight, I think between Louise, myself, and Beth, we will answer those by email.
Okay, great. Could we limit exterior construction to weekdays and beginning not before 8 a.m. and ending at, say, 5 p.m.?
Well, that's all done by an ordinance. Now, Lyle, you might, I don't know whether you want to talk about that or not, but I know you get some complaints about it. But
We do. Currently, it's from 7 to 7, Saturdays 8 to 5, and I believe that was changed within the last 3 years just to allow people more time and time to go out and enjoy the screen porch. We don't allow any work on Sundays and federal holidays.
good.
All right. Okay. How much does a sidewalk cost?
Well, Beth, you remember how much we talked about how many feet? We were doing it by the foot, but I can't remember.
Honestly, that's not at the tip of my tongue.
If that's a question, we can address that by email. But that we do have that number, and it might vary some because of.
I asked that one. There are several questions back and forth about the wisdom of paying for sidewalks versus changing the speed limit. So.
Can I add? I mean, there are a number of factors that determine the cost. So whether or not you have to provide drainage, whether there's topography involved, the width of the sidewalk, a number of different things. And I think what you alluded to, Debbie, was I guess the question of use of resources. At what point do we decide whether to build sidewalks versus have people versus lower the speed limit? And I think that's the beauty of the master plan, is that we can take a global view of all the pedestrian needs and then make decisions in terms of what are critical sidewalk needs that we can pursue immediately, and then what are some things that we may want to pursue next, and then what are some items that we may want to look at some different alternatives. And so the master plan gives us the ability to look at all of those things and their interrelationships in combination. So we'll definitely look at that as part of the planning process. Absolutely.
All right. Have you considered using car details for Belle Meade or car decals for Belle Meade residents so that local police and fellow residents have a sense of their neighbors as the traffic continues to grow in our city?
We haven't done that, but it's worth a consideration. Beth, do you want to make any comment there? Has that been brought up before in the past?
I think I've heard that in the past. No action was ever taken on that.
It would be, it would serve as some identification, but it won't get you out of a ticket.
It's certainly something we could consider and should consider part of branding to Belle Meade and communication connectivity. We would consider it.
All right. To what extent will the city take ownership of the specific stormwater issues that currently exist in Belle Meade?
Lau, you want to address that one? I assume you mean ones that are on personal property, or is it in the right of way type stormwater? Is that person asked that question?
It's probably talking about in the right of way. And Kimley Horn will work closely with our city engineer, Steve Casey. Steve's been here for many years, and he and I have identified many hot spots throughout the city. So those will definitely be on the radar.
All right. Are there any plans for the entrance to Linwood from Harding, where the rock wall has fallen apart and where the rocks build up?
Yeah, we understand that. Beth, you want to take that, or you want me to do that, or you want to both take it?
You can go ahead.
Well, it's what we would like to do is provide connectivity from Belle Meade City Hall down to the city limits, which would be close to where Kroger would be on the other side of the street. But we would consider certainly sidewalks that would make City Hall down to that connectivity of Metro possible. That would be a fairly easy connection. Now we have people on Linwood who are looking for that. We'd love to have that Linwood connection of their sidewalks down to, and down past the Eskin property to connect there at Harding Road. So there are going to be several priorities that are going to be discussed, I think, fairly soon too.
Okay, great. The art on Belle Meade Boulevard and Harding helps define our community. Is additional artwork that would define Belle Meade within the scope of the plan?
I think Louise might want to take that, since I know it's been a high priority for her.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. There is the Beautification Society, Series Society under Laura Catherine Wood has already looked at different opportunity for art, both in a public space as well as to provide an introduction and entrance to Belle Meade. So yes, we think there's absolutely an opportunity for public art in Belle Meade.
We also want people that, as they enter Belle Meade, to know they've entered Belle Meade, and that's we've talked about that before. But there are 5 or 6 main entrances, and I think that we're talking about beautification and some type of attractive signage that you're in Belle Meade. So
yeah, I think that's part of Belle Meade's brand, and that is absolutely part and parcel of this project. Is that's one of the tools in our toolkit to preserve and promote Belle Meade's brand is through public art. And can I just jump in real quick? We know it's after 7 o'clock, and some of you need to move on with your evening. We completely understand. We'll probably keep going a little while longer. If you need to drop off, we're going to make the full recording available on the city's YouTube channel and on the project website later. So don't feel like you're missing anything if you need to go.
All right, shall I continue with the next question? Is there a way to work with Metro to encourage beautification of nearby commercial area on Harding Pike? It would reflect well on Belle Meade if that area restricted its billboards. Do we have any relationship that would allow us to work with Metro on issues such as these?
Well, two things. One, we have a great relationship with our Councilman Tom Druffel, who keeps us posted on what's going on in Metro that would affect Belle Meade. But the second thing is that we are quite aware of Metro's finances. Rusty Moore and I met with the mayor, and we were talking about we had a reserve that would carry us for 3 or 4 years. He said he had a reserve that would carry him till 6 o'clock that night. So there's quite a difference in Belle Meade finances and Metro finances. And so it's going to be difficult for a while to ask Metro to do anything. We'd rather be asking them things that we can do for them that would help us, such as Palmer Park and in any conditions up at near Percy Warner Park. So I think that we're going to be limited with what we can do with Metro right now, I think.
I think Metro would be open to anything that we could do as far as a partnership goes, but the actual funding is not there right now. But I think they would be very receptive to anything that we had as far as our design.
Metro really likes Belle Meade because of our video system, because of our walkability plans. There's some things that we really do that they hold us in high esteem for that. So we want to keep it that way. We enjoy working with Metro, and we obviously Belle Meade residents pay a huge part of the tax burden for Metro too. So don't forget that.
All right. This question asks, will the plan look at past traffic data and recommendations and prioritize the items that were already in the pipeline, so to speak?
Absolutely, Patsy. Yes, we are committed to working on some issues, which we know residents have been patient as we get the plan kicked off. But absolutely, we are looking at the hotspots and we're looking at the areas which we already have some information regarding traffic data to move forward. Absolutely.
Okay. Would the city consider an ordinance to forbid commercial lawn care on Sundays and on weekdays within certain hours?
Jim, I'm going to let you look at that.
Lyle, there's no commercial lawn care on Sunday. Should not be. Is that correct?
I'm really not aware of that.
Okay, so we don't try to restrict lawn care from a third party vendor.
No, Jim, the way the ordinance is written, it just says that home maintenance, lawn maintenance can occur on Sunday. So
I know home maintenance, but what about
well, it just says lawn maintenance for your property, I think it says. So it doesn't designate whether it's your own lawnmower or a commercial lawnmower that's mowing the lawn. So
okay,
it's not that specific.
I won't argue with the ordinance. So I don't think we want to change that right now. We could consider it, but.
All right. I'm gonna head back to some of these questions get very specific. So I'll just start going through some of them. And okay, we've had several, we've talked a lot about traffic calming. There are several questions and some specifically for the engineer, Terrence. I would like to know I think the questions here is I would like to know the engineer's opinion on traffic calming versus other options. There is also a question further down about speed humps. And is that the type of traffic calming that we're talking about?
Yeah, can I jump in real quick? I
Can.
think what they're getting at is when people hear traffic calming, they think automatically speed humps and speed bumps. And so those are certainly options, but those aren't the only options. So when we talk about traffic calming, there are other ways that we can do that as well. And so I'll let Terrence talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, there's other options. I mean, narrowing the road is kind of a big option where people kind of feel more restricted. They tend to go a little bit slower. So that can include bulb outs at intersections, for example. There's this other item called chicanes, where basically it doesn't allow you to go straight on a road. You kind of have to kind of weave a little bit in certain sections, and we can provide examples later on. But there are various options of things that we can include that don't involve just the common speed bump or speed hump, and even those can honestly be made nice. You can use stamped concrete or brick pavers potentially for items like that, or like a speed table where the entire intersection actually kind of raises up to kind of let you know that, hey, something's happening here. You may interact with pedestrians or bicyclists or something of that nature. So there are a lot of different options that we can definitely explore that would make sense in the various roads around Belle Meade.
Sure. And I'll add, I mean, there are some good examples even within Belle Meade today. And you mentioned chicanes when we did our field visit. I can't remember the exact street, but we saw some good examples of chicanes. I would point out Linwood Terrace when you come off of Harding. There's a median, and then there's also the pavement changes to stone in a certain location. And if you'll go out there and look, you'll notice that when they come to that location, cars slow down because it's a visual cue. It's a narrowing of the road. It's a changing of the pavement. And it's something that sort of wakes drivers up and makes them aware and slows them down. That's an example of a more subtle, attractive traffic calming measure that is also a drainage feature too. So there are definitely other ways that we can calm traffic without relying on things like speed humps and speed bumps, which we acknowledge are very disruptive.
All right, here's another, it's a very specific traffic calming question, and it's asking, will this traffic calming apply to Harding Pike and Leek, specifically with regard to the new Dunkin' Donuts that is causing backups in traffic?
The traffic calming concerns will be looked at from a holistic basis. So if as we're collecting data and receiving feedback from residents, that area has specific needs, we will look at that specifically. But overall, this is an holistic approach to all the traffic calming in Belle Meade. But absolutely, I encourage you to put all these comments on the interactive map so that these small specific issues are captured on the map.
I do think Harding Road will always be problematic because that is a state highway, and we have a lot of restrictions of what we could do there. Leek, I think, is a road that's primarily in metro, considered metro, but we have residents on one side of Leek Avenue, all the way from the plantation all the way back to Belle Meade Boulevard. So we take a big responsibility in that. So we can certainly entertain speed calming there. We've actually had people present speed calming ideas to us at the commissioner meeting before. Beth,
that specific spot, I pass by it on my way to work every day, and there are times when the line for the drive-up window is so long that cars are actually more or less parked on Harding Road, which is crazy in the morning. I'm surprised there's not been a wreck. That specific area is actually in Metro. We can certainly talk to Tom Druffel, our council person for that area, about doing something, because it is dangerous. Every week, at least several days a week, there are cars that are parked out into the Harding Road area waiting to get to the drive-up window at Dunkin' Donuts. It's very dangerous.
If you drive down West End, though, the same thing happens at Starbucks when you get down by, well, look at Alicia's back there nodding at that too, that one by Vanderbilt. So there's some bottlenecks wherever Starbucks is in the morning, and Dunkin' Donuts, if they got drive-through, it's a problem. People got to get their coffee fixed, but at the same time, I think that the speed coming in on Harding Road creates a real problem, because people come in there from Highway 70 and Highway 100. They're going 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. Where in West End, they've been under more speed control. So it really is dangerous.
Well, speaking of Harding Road, here is a question about the property. It says the property on the other side of Harding Road. And the question is, are there opportunities for us to use this for beautification?
Yes, I think there is. I think there are opportunities to use that for beautification. We've actually been in touch with the owners of that property, and it's an opportunity that we will look at during this process.
All right. We discussed much earlier the speed limit, the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. I don't know that we need to readdress that. Just know that there are several questions, so you guys might want to address those. Is there enough? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm making sure we have not missed any topics here. We talked about burying power lines already.
Maybe one thing I would like to make sure that everybody's clear on, we've talked about sidewalks, we've talked about sidewalks in conjunction with speed calming. I believe that we really, as a priority, when we put the sidewalks down at Harding Place, there was a lot of concern about speeding, and that was a major reason for putting those down. However, we've now found that the walkability of those sidewalks has proven that those people would not do anything to take those sidewalks away. They love those sidewalks for walkability. So I think if we think that putting the sidewalks would increase walkability, I think that's almost a priority over speed calming. So.
Okay, I think that's great. And yeah, a lot of your questions are specifically about Linwood Boulevard and sidewalks on Linwood Boulevard, which I believe we've already talked about some. So I
think if we can encourage people to go to the map and put those comments in the map, it will give us something in the long range that we can be looking at too. So please go to that map and look at it and make entrance on it.
I think we've gotten through. That's through Belle Meade. I think we've gotten through all of the questions. Let's end with, how do we protect drivers on Belle Meade Boulevard from walkers who walk 3 people abreast and bikers who ride side by side?
I think that's an excellent question. And I think we do that the same way we do everything else, through communication and through design. We have to let people know that they have to take personal responsibility for their own safety and the safety of others as they are pedestrians. And I think we do that with a smart design and aesthetically pleasing signage that says you must stay single file when you're on this roadway. So it's 7:20 right now. I'd like to thank all the participants in tonight's program. We are so thrilled for this level of engagement. This is your plan. Every question you have is your question to keep feeding to us and feeding to the website and feeding to the interactive map. We are grateful for your time and we are here for you. This is not the end of the discussion. This is the beginning of the discussion. Thank you so much, Kimberly Horn. Thank you, Jim, Beth, Lyle. We look forward to hearing more of these questions on the website, as well as on Election Day and on Sunday at St. George's. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.